Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast, 50 days until opening day, and we are on a 4-wide Wednesday. Also, Wild Thought Wednesday, which we will get to later. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Corey Freedman in studio today, and Mr. Cody Delmendo. Hi to everybody in the live chat. Best way to enjoy the CHGO experience is to sign up for that CHGO Sports YouTube page so you don't miss any shows and you can be in the live chat during the show. Also, becoming a diehard, because that's all day.
All day.
That's all day. And we know that there are no bigger diehard fans in the history of sports than Cubs fans. So we're expecting diehards to sign up before the season.
Yeah.
By the way, they're signing up at a record pace right now. Diehards across CHGO at a record pace.
Hector Anaya said, the bell icon got me here. No more missing live shows. If you're missing live shows or you're just not aware of show times, the bell icon is huge.
Like that's right.
Gives you that notification.
That's right. We're 12:30 this week. We'll be 3:30 next week, just so you know. 3:30 next week. So anyway, shout out to all those new diehards that are signing up in just droves right now. Ben, Steven, Greg, 2 Gs, just like Snoop Dogg. Jimmy, Jacob, and Jeremy. And Jeremy says he actually joined as a diehard because of the video of an exotic dancer that Karn posted from the Super Bowl yesterday.
Yes.
Did you see that?
I did.
It was
a little weird.
We need to do the same
I'm going to lie.
thing. I feel like I'm going to need to go somewhere and ask someone, should the Cubs re-sign Cody Bellinger?
It made me laugh, I'll say that.
But it was like an exotic dancer in a giant martini cup. They said, no, they were not at a gentleman's club. It was just Vegas.
He's doing his job. Big J journalism, brother.
Asking the important questions.
Important questions.
Do you think he had to ask permission of the woman dancing in a giant martini cup if he could take her video and post it on YouTube?
I don't think
or on
so.
Twitter.
I think he'd have to ask.
Or because she's in Vegas and she's in a martini cup, all bets are off.
I think all bets are off when you're in Vegas.
I don't know.
I think he can post it. You can also post
he
anything on X and not get it removed.
Carm didn't ask.
Yeah. There's no way Carm asked. No. That was about as natural as it gets.
Yeah.
Credit to him.
You said 50 days to opening day. We are now a week till pitchers and catchers report officially.
Wow.
Spring training.
Less than a week until you go.
Yeah. 5 days.
Now, are you packed?
No, not even close. I haven't started.
You got to get the Hawaiian shirts in line. I haven't been looking at the weather for Arizona yet. Are you going to need like this, for instance, the CHGO camo hoodie?
Yeah,
which you can get at allchgo.com. Dope merch, sick drip.
How's the weather work in late February? I need to know this. And
usually really nice. By the time you get to March 1st, it's usually like 80 every day. But that first 2 weeks,
it's
hit or miss.
All shorts?
We're looking at next Monday.
Oh, you can pack
in
shorts.
Phoenix.
Like all shorts.
Oh,
do I bring pants?
Oh, I'd bring a pair of pants.
Next Monday in Phoenix, high of 63, low of 36. Yeah, but it is sunny, so the sun helps.
63, the sun helps, but as soon as it goes down, it's cold.
Yeah. So.
And in general, Cody should always pack.
Might have to hold out.
Should always pack.
Fair enough.
Might have to hold off on the Hawaiians for maybe the first week or so. You know.
Well, for your on-air stuff, you could do the Hawaiian shirt and then put on your.
I'll take a few Hawaiians myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to go to Arizona in February and not be here. Admittedly, I can't wait to not be here in February.
Is Brendan going, Corey? Is he going out there to Arizona?
He usually ends up there for a little bit. Yeah, I think he's got some family out there, so he ends up on the backfields at some point. I don't know what his plan is, though.
Brendan just
stalking on the backfields.
You have to get him out of the laboratory, so I don't know when he's available.
Brendan's in the backfields, going through the fence that separates the baseball field, obviously, and just talking to the pitching coach. He's like, "Hey, Tommy, it's me, Brendan."
That or he's going to be going and he's going to see Morel and he's going to be like, Chris, I feel like you can be a pitcher. Like he was tweeting last night.
Knowing him, he'll show up with his arm sleeve and whatever and hope he can just slide into the practice.
Is A2000.
Who's that guy?
Yeah. A2000, who is that guy?
Must be a non-roster invitee.
Yeah.
Ricky with a super chat already, $2 says, congrats to Ryan on your engagement with Selena Gomez.
Credit to Ryan.
Yeah. Not the place I was planning to reveal it, but thank you, Ricky. I don't know how you got that. How you got word like that. I hadn't broken the news. Benny Blanco's out. Ryan Herrera's in.
Well, this is just like Taylor Swift. You accept an award, and you're just like, oh, and by the way, I have a new album coming out. This is where you can buy it. Thanks.
Yeah. No, this is my new favorite bit because the more we talk about it, the higher the odds are that Selena Gomez eventually sees it or hears it.
The art of manifestation works, and Delmetrics proved that last season. Because whenever I started taking all the guys for who you got that no one wanted, they started doing well. All right?
Yeah.
The art of manifestation works. And that said, Cole Tucker, I still hate you. There's nothing more I'm rooting for more than Vanessa Hudgens and Cole Tucker divorce.
All right, well, that's not nice.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I disagree with you.
Just remember, because Selena's
Cody Del
single
home
doesn't
record.
mean you're guaranteed cash considerations is out there, and he's a pretty attractive guy.
Cody Del home
He's
record.
well traveled.
I like that.
Well traveled.
Considerations is well traveled.
It's an international man. Speaking of, we mentioned Brendan and his lab. We went over PECOTA projections yesterday, which had the Cubs at like 80, 81 wins, something like that, right? And a 31% chance of making the playoffs. It only took a matter of hours for Brendan to then go on Twitter and turn that into some sort of map and graph. Do we have that, Sarah? I put in Slack. Can you pull that up?
I remember retweeting it and just not really understanding it.
It's in Slack, or it's on Brendan's Twitter handle.
One.
He took it and then gave us whether or not it's valid or not. PECOTA projections. Honestly, I don't know what it means. He's got one gray spike, and then he's got some red spike and a 5-win error. PECOTA projections are fun, but they also come error prone with 10 of the 30 teams missing the mark by 14 wins. Red distribution.
That's the red part.
Why couldn't he just leave it at the sentence? Why did he have to give us the graph and then start getting the nerd words in there?
Because how else is he going to
He's
show
got to
everyone
back it up.
Yeah. How else is he going to
this
show
is for
everyone?
if anybody wants to check what he's talking about.
He goes as far as trying to convince us all that Christopher Morel can be a pitcher last night, too. So, I mean, this is no surprise.
Then
Is he still using Python,
the key on the
you think?
side is showing Pythagorean theorem, and it's showing PECOTA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's deep in
It's a whole thread on Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, I think just trying, because, I mean, you do see it, and this happens every year. Like, people really freak out about it. And so I think he's just trying to add some perspective of, like, this is not like an exact win total, like, that the Cubs are going to have. It's a projection system based on certain things, and you should interpret it a certain way.
So Fangraphs now has the latest one to come out a day later, and roughly the same thing, right? Oh, their only difference is they go from a 31% chance of making the playoffs to 37% chance.
But wasn't it a lower chance to win the division?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Like, I
Because,
just
make the playoffs also includes wild cards.
Yeah.
It's not like...
So it actually promotes what I said yesterday, or at least gives me some sort of talking point on the fact that I said yesterday I think 2 NL Central teams make the playoffs this year.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
maybe
So
Fangraphs
Delmetrics-
and Delmetrics are finally coming together. I keep emailing them, telling them to put my shit up there, but they won't do it.
They don't do it.
Fangraphs has the Cubs ahead of teams like the Marlins, the Mets, where we saw Mets. PECOTA had Mets at the third wild card,
Yeah,
right?
The last wild card spot.
Fangraphs would have the Cubs at that third wild card spot. So, yeah, there you go.
Stucky stats don't agree with any of it.
I mean, I know you guys talked about the PECOTA stuff a little bit.
what do
but
you think?
I feel like all of this lines up exactly with what anybody should have expected.
Yeah.
I think what's jarring to some people is seeing the Cardinals ahead, but even in the Fangraphs one, like, remember, they're projecting them for, like, low 80s wins. It's not like they're projecting them to be
100-win
an
team, yeah.
actually, like, good top contender. It's a bad division, and I think the projections reflect that. The Cardinals have a lot of players that I think those projections are going to feel safer about in a lot of ways. Arenado, Goldschmidt, even the pitchers they added, despite being older and carrying some risks, I think it's easier to project those things if you're putting things into a computer system like that. And when we look at the Cubs, I know you talked about how they are not the team that started the 2023 season. You got rid of a lot of that dead weight. You did improve your depth. You've found stuff out about a lot of players. But at the same time, you still don't have your best offensive player from last year. Yeah. And you have a lot that if you're talking about a projection system, they don't know the answer to. Who is Shota Imanaga in Major League Baseball? What does at the moment, a Mike Tauchman-led center field with PCA coming in whenever, what does that look like? What does Michael Busch playing, every day against right-handed pitching look like at first base? Who's playing third base? These are a lot of questions. And as we've talked about, some of this stuff can get better, of course. Justin Steele can be even better than he was last year and win the Cy Young. He could also be a tick worse and still be really good. Yeah. But the Cubs have a ton of questions that I think you can't reliably project, which is part of the reason that us and everybody comes on these shows every week and yells about signing Bellinger or signing more than Bellinger, because you want to get to the area where you are reliably predicted to win a division that currently doesn't have a team projected to win more than 85 games.
Right. It's what I said yesterday. It's on paper, anybody that looks at it should be able to say they're not as good as they were last year. On paper, that doesn't mean they won't be as good as they were last year. But if you remove Stroman and Bellinger, and your most proven addition in the offseason is Hector Neris, I can't disagree with the projections.
No, I don't think.
But it's also why Stucky stats are not coming out for another 50 days.
No, I don't think it is. I don't think anyone is disagreeing with it. Right now they're being projected to lose or to win less games than they actually won last year. And yeah, looking at the team on paper, like I can see why that happens. Arguably their best player last year. No, actually their best player last year is no longer on the team. Like that would make a lot of sense that they would lose less games were they not to bring him back, right? I don't know how many wins Bellinger adds to the team. And now if they do re-sign him, be interested to see where the Cubs obviously line up on PECOTA or Fangraphs projections, whatever it is, because he does add something. He's going to add a few wins depending on what the number is. I don't know, but we could see if he signs with the Cubs, we could see the Cubs all of a sudden jump into that projected to win the division spot, right? Like I don't think that's out of the question if they re-sign him. It's just at this point, like they got to do that because the team on paper is worse than it was, in September when the season ended. Just because, as you said, you subtract Stroman and Bellinger, and you made some additions that I think we all think are good additions. We just don't know. They're just not. Besides Neris, not proven at the MLB level.
Yeah, and you hope there's development too.
Yeah,
you hope.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, again. What, Fangraphs gave him 81 wins, so literally a 500 season. What, 81 and 81?
81 and a half. So
yeah,
81 and 81.
So it's kind of like what I said yesterday in the fact that I think it's a gift that they gave the Cubs 80 or 81 wins when all three of us, or all of you guys just said that on paper this team isn't as good as last year. So if the team isn't as good as last year and you're still getting projected to win 80 games, then they're not too far off. Obviously, you need your best players. So the fact that it's below 83, I understand, and I'm okay with it, and I agree with it. But I think that PECOTA and Fangraphs believes that this team could be a sneaky team in 2024, and even if they sign Bellinger or not, could still be a sneaky team in 2024. It's going to take a lot for me to talk myself into that, but I got 50 days to do that, right? But that's like the spin zone that I can give anyone listening to this is that if you had told me that this team a month ago, if you had told me this team was going to be even close to what last year's team was without Bellinger, I wouldn't have agreed with that. But you have these projection systems coming out thinking that they're two wins less than last year without Bellinger on the roster. To me, that's just very telling. And again, like Corey mentioned all of those guys, and we kind of talked about it a little bit yesterday, but I think it's a gift that they really think that this team could win 80 games without Cody Bellinger and the lack of really any major move on the market of proven guys.
I will say that, I mean, it was me personally. I'm not rewriting history. I said the team last year was like around a 500 team with the ability to go like 3 or 4 games either which way. And that was without knowing what Cody Bellinger was going to be last year. So I do think the team was good last year and should have been even better, obviously, with Cody Bellinger doing what he did. So
we all agree with that.
I think 500 is right around right now where I look at this team and I'm like, yeah, I could see 500. Like I don't think that's I wouldn't consider it a gift. I think 500 is reasonable for the team as it's constructed, and Bellinger adds more to it. Obviously,
Yeah, I think
reasonable
that's
but disappointing.
So that's
for
what
sure.
I was going to say.
for sure.
Disappointing.
I
It's an
think this
offseason
is
you went
fine.
into thinking about Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah.
for sure. I agree. I agree with you.
And
on
I
that.
think
fair.
I think it reflects the biggest disappointment, which is, as Cody's saying, like I think that's a fair projection, and I think given how the changes, like you would take that for the roster. But for where we wanted the organization to be, it's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Because it reflects that they are still in a position where you're kind of relying on a ton to either go right or wrong to kind of define how this season is going to go, which is what they did last year. We were hoping that they would get themselves to a position, and I know, Luke, you were talking about it, I think, yesterday. We talked about it on Friday. Like, the division is right there.
Yeah.
The team they're projecting to win the division was horrible last year, and they have them at 84 wins. What a gift. One of the things, like Brendan and I on Friday were looking at, like imagine being in, pick another division, the AL West, the AL East, a nightmare. And the Cubs have this absolute gift of the division that they're in, and we're still sitting here talking about the projections like, well, if these 8 things go the way they need them to, and maybe they sign another player, then they'll be, and it's like, it's not good enough. It just isn't good enough.
No. Yeah.
They need, and there's still time, but even Bellinger's not going to move them to a 90-win projection. Like he'll move them to
maybe they get up to
83, 84.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to take you to the territory that we all wanted them to be at, which is like, this is the clear-cut favorite in the NL Central. And that's going to be disappointing. We can look at the team and be excited and try to figure out how they win the division while also noting, like, this is not great. Enough goes wrong, and now you're back in the mid-70s. Like, and it's not – it's easy to look at the stuff that would go right that pushes this team to 90 wins. It's easy to look at the stuff that goes wrong and pushes them down into the 70s. And that's what I think a lot of the fans are going to have the problem with. You didn't build enough, like, certainty with your roster.
And that's if you bring Bellinger back and if Bellinger plays like he did last season or to that same level. And we got a super chat from Foreign Empire. We have a coach that has won with less. Belly can bring us to 90 personally, I think, but I also think Council can bring us to 90 without him. So that's my question is, if it's Wild Thought Wednesday.
Thank you, Foreign Empire.
Thank you, Foreign Empire.
Thank you, Foreign Empire, for your $5 donation. Wild Thought Wednesday. This one is going to send the godfather of CHGO, Michael Collada, possibly into the fetal position.
I feel like he's always been in the fetal position.
Wild Thought Wednesday, as we're all sitting here saying it's disappointing that they are at this point with 50 days left. With 50 days left before opening day, is Jed playing this perfectly? What if Jed is playing this perfectly? Being patient, trying to wait out Boras, and not getting involved in these massive 600, 500, 400, like any of the massive deals yet, not overpaying for Snell, not overpaying for Montgomery, not overpaying for Chapman right now. And he's saying, you know what? We have the prospects. This is not the time in our step to panic unless something comes to us. He's made it pretty clear. He's not, Ryan says it every day, he's not willing to go over the boundary to get certain players. He doesn't want to overstep it. He's more cautious than some other guys. Now, he got Swanson, but barely. What if Jed's playing this perfectly and setting the Cubs up for sustained success like we're asking for?
Right.
Now, I'm asking that, and I'll tell you, I don't believe that. It's my Wild Thought Wednesday, but I don't believe a word I've said. I agree with what Corey's saying. They're sitting on their hands watching the cars go by, and they've got 50 days to fix that.
I don't think he's played the entire offseason? Are you talking about the entire offseason or just like the Boras situation?
I think his entire offseason, other than Craig Counsell, has been very conservative.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think
Very conservative, considering it's a wide open division and he's got more money than any team in the division.
Yeah, I don't think he played the entire offseason perfectly. I think he's a little closer to that with the Boras thing. What Boras is asking, and then we've seen numbers, but nothing like concrete, right? But what Boras is asking is just clearly for some of these guys is just above what any Major League Baseball team wants to pay. So the fact that Montgomery, Snell, Bellinger, Chapman, the fact that they're all still on the market tells you that the ask is really high. And so I don't think. I mean, considering that none of the 30 teams have gone and signed one of those guys, I can't say that Jed isn't playing it the right way. But
he could be playing it perfectly.
I think when you're looking at the Boras part of it, I don't think he's playing it wrong, because if he was, those guys would probably be gone and you lost out on them, right? I don't think he's playing it wrong. But the offseason, I will agree that it's just been a very conservative offseason since the Craig Counsell signing, hiring, just because it's what we've talked about consistently, that they haven't made huge splashes, which, whether you wanted them to or not, is your idea of a good offseason, but they haven't made those big splashes. They didn't go out and pay a bunch of money for Yamamoto, who was the obvious top pitcher signing on the market. And again, like we talked about, like Hector Neris, Imanaga, and the Michael Busch trade is all they've really done on the player side. So it does feel more conservative than not. So I don't know that I would say he's played. I wouldn't say he's played the offseason perfectly entirely. But when it comes down to the Boras thing, I think he's playing it more right than wrong.
I think what I agree with Luke in this scenario is that I agree that they haven't been as aggressive as they should have been, coming off a season where you were projected to win 90 games going into September and you completely collapsed, and now you're spinning the whole Craig Counsell's hiring as a thing that's going to
panacea. Panacea, cure-all.
Right. I agree with that, but I disagree on the Bellinger stuff because, like what Ryan said, I feel like he would have signed already if Boras wasn't asking for an ass ton of money. You know what I mean?
And that's the big four of his clients, I think.
It's not even just Bellinger. It's Snell, it's Montgomery, it's Chapman too. And so I think he is playing the Bellinger situation right. And I keep saying, like I said in first day of the offseason, maybe it was in October, the longer this goes on, the more likely I think he's going to be a Cub. And so I'm staying on that hill. But the biggest thing for me is the lack of just being aggressive in an offseason where it felt like the team was really taking steps forward, and you played better than what anyone really expected. Because I haven't forgot, going into last season, many people thought they were selling at the deadline again, 70-win team at best, blah, 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 and they fuck around and win 83 games. You get some extremes like Justin Steele, Nico Dansby win Gold Gloves, Seiya, Happ, productive, whatever. All keep going, right? So I felt like going in this offseason, they should have been a little bit more aggressive, and that's probably my biggest thing, my biggest frustration. But at the same time, there is still time. Maybe once they sign Bellinger, that one of those trade scenarios that we've talked about all offseason happens. It's just it just comes down to the fact that they just baseball needs one of those cutoff times or whatever, because it's just Boras is controlling this entire thing, and it's just it's not good for the game, man.
Are you? I guess this is for Corey and Cody. Jesse Rogers says Bellinger 49. If he had to say right now, 49% chance he signs with the Cubs, 51 he ends up somewhere else. Are you discouraged by that number of the Rogers rating?
I'll let Corey go first on that one.
Are you? Does someone who's in the know saying 49%, does that worry you?
No, because I think if I read it correctly, the logic is I think what it's been the whole time, and as we've talked about, if somebody, as you were just saying, is getting nervous, they need to make a big move for their offseason, and they are willing to come over the top, then that's not going to be the Cubs, which I think has been the case this entire time. And I agree, with Cody, like if that offer was there, I think we'd be done with this by now. But that doesn't mean that it can't come. There was a point, I think it was a few weeks ago, that it said he didn't have any official offers. And so you never know when that comes or doesn't come in terms of somebody deciding, you know what, Cody Bellinger is our guy, or we missed out on XYZ free agent and we need to make a move and Cody's still there. Let's talk to him and have it. Sometimes things come together fast. The Counsell Hoyer stuff happened very quickly. It wasn't even on people's radar, but then they were like, hey, we should reach out to him. And a few days later, he's their manager. So it doesn't. I think the question more is like, how do we feel about Jed's strategy on the whole thing, which, as we keep talking about it, we'll see if it works out or not. It's a tough question to answer until we see if it works or not.
Jed just hasn't proved enough to be able to make a big move like this. Other than Dansby, Seiya was less than $100 million. Like, you got the extensions done with Happ and Nico. Like, I'll give him credit there. I remember before I think Happ was the first one. Before it happened, we were all like, Nico was the first one. It happened, and we were like a little mind blown by it. And, I give him credit for that. But when it comes to on the free agent market, the biggest thing that he has done, or the biggest deal that he's made, is signing Swanson. And again, it's worked out. He had the highest F4 of any shortstop from last year, and great. But he was still, like, at the time, was looked at as a consolation prize, right? Well, Jed has yet to act on anyone at the top of the free agent market where, in my personal opinion, the Cubs should be at. They passed on Yamamoto. Sure, $325 million, 12 years. That's a long time for a guy who's never pitched in Major League Baseball. I get it. Maybe Ohtani is the outlier here. Like they tried, but Ohtani wasn't expected or didn't want to come to the Cubs. Whatever.
He wasn't going anywhere with the Dodgers.
Right. Like maybe Ohtani's the outlier, right? But my point is that for people like me and Corey and Luke on the outside and not on in the know of anything, it just looks like Jed is afraid to just kind of be a little bit more aggressive or step into a little bit of boldness, because that's a word I haven't used in this conversation, is just being a little bit more bold. Like your prospect capital is where it's at. You could have made a trade. I feel like I don't know how you haven't made a trade yet because of all these prospects you have. Like, I'm asking for a little bit of boldness. Now, I'm not trading Christopher Morel and Owen Casey for Emmanuel Clase like that guy from Bleacher Report tried to put out there on the internet yesterday. But I'm just asking, like, there's other moves that you could have made outside of re-signing Cody Bellinger. You know what I mean? Like, and that's my frustration is it really feels like they're trying to go into 24 and find out what they have from within. And it's like, but you've been doing that for 2 years now. The only difference going into this year is that you have better prospects coming up, or at least prospects that are ranked higher, which, okay, all right. I remember Brett Jackson and Josh Vitters too. I just like it. There has to be a little bit of both, man. Like, we should be able to be excited about some of the prospects, but also be excited about the team that those prospects are going to come up and hopefully help the team propel to higher levels than we believe, And that's the biggest frustration for me when it comes to Jed in, this offseason, but also in previous offseasons too. And I give him a pass the last two offseasons before this one because we knew where the team was and they had to build from within and get the organization healthy. But you're healthy now, and you sign Imanagi, you made a trade for a top 50 prospect that we still don't know what's going to be, but I like the trade, and you sign Hector Neris. Like,
you got to be willing to take a risk. You got to be willing to take a risk.
I think your word bold is a key word.
Yeah.
Well, to get back to your question, the 49-51 thing.
Yeah.
I guess spin zone, 49% means you still have the highest chance of signing him, right? Even if the other 29 teams are splitting that 51%, 49 is still the highest
49 versus the field.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But
Cody, that's a good Cody spin.
You said something earlier that what Scott Boras is doing is bad for baseball, and I completely disagree. I don't. I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's bad for baseball at all what he's doing.
getting the players the most money they can get.
I look at it as, and actually wrote about this in our Die Hard mailbag last week. So
credit to you.
Diehards get that.
Die Hard.
That I don't know any other industry besides pro sports where we look at players and their representatives, or employees and their representatives, trying to get the best deals they can get. I don't know any other industry where we sit there and say it's a bad thing. I don't know
where we take the side of
the people paying.
The big corporate.
Yeah, I don't know any other industry where we look at it and say employees shouldn't hold out for the best deal they can get or look for the best deal they can get. There's no other industry where we talk about that. I don't know why sports in general think that that's a bad thing.
You know what the difference is? There's fans.
Sure.
There's fans in sports.
But there's no games to watch right
now. If you're talking about, hey, I don't want Amazon to make this money, I'm looking out for the consumer, there's no fan in the middle saying, I'm a fan of Amazon.
Sure. But
you know what I mean? Like, there just isn't. That's what's different about it.
That's what's different, but I still can't sit here and say that Scott Boras is bad for baseball when he's just doing what's best for his clients. When we talk about a long history of owners owning players, right? Like we talk of owners not letting players even leave their team, right? You go back to like the Black Sox stuff, or no free agency where players can kind of go on their own market and figure out what they're worth. I think I generally fall on the players and agent side on this kind of stuff. He is playing by
the rules, and if let's say I was able to hit a curveball and continued playing sports at some point, he would be my agent. Right?
Absolutely.
If today you were a top prospect and you were going into baseball and you're like, all right, I'm going to play the field for agents right now, who would be the first name that you'd be like, are you interested?
My
Yeah,
rebuttal
absolutely.
and my rebuttal to Ryan here, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks this. It's just I'm asking for a deadline. Like, we shouldn't be sitting
like
here
baseball
50
to
days.
change it.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Either.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it's not his fault, but what he's doing is just like when. It's like when you change the rules for anything. It's like the shift. I don't like the shift. I don't care who started it. Fix it.
Yeah.
And I think Jed actually talked about that at the Cubs con, right? Like he wanted a deadline, and deadlines spur movement across, like no matter what it is. Like deadlines spur movement. If you're talking about the trade deadline, if you're talking about a signing deadline potentially, like for one, I the way it would limit the control players have over the free agency, I would imagine the Players Association would have issues with that. So I don't think that I don't know when that would come to baseball, definitely not before the next CBA, but I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think if we're talking about, spurring movement, getting the offseason going instead of waiting, deadlines would have, and that's
it's up to baseball to change that, not Boras.
Yeah. And that's another thing.
And
like,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When you talk about like the NBA, right? Like they have a cap. They have I think it's kind of soft in some ways, but mostly a hard cap. And they don't have a deadline per se, but they have max contracts and a cap, which is like, okay, these players need to get max contracts before teams run out of money, and teams need to, get up as close to the salary cap as they can with good players, right? Like that's what spurs movement in the NBA. Baseball doesn't have those things, so the only way to spur movement would be to like institute some kind of signing deadline, which I don't know what that would look like, but I think that's if you want the offseason to kind of not drag out as long, that would be probably the best way to do it.
I feel like it would make the baseball offseason more like it was when I was a kid, when we were kids. Hell, when Luke was working.
Okay, here we go.
Working,
here comes
not
the
working
shaming.
here. Listen, I'm not even trying to throw shade.
When Luke was putting stats into tablets.
When you were in the Cubs dugout.
Back when the reserve clause was still going
around.
When you were in the Cubs dugout talking to Ramos and Derek, all right?
The games were in black and white.
Yeah.
Players were getting,
he was living in a cave, and he did stick figures on the ceiling of the cave.
Players were making $1,000 per season.
I just remember when the baseball offseason was so much more fun, because at least by the time you got into January, you had an idea of what teams looked like. And then these lists that they're putting out all the time would make some sense. And these PECOTA projections and Fangraphs projections would, at least you could look at them and be like, all right, well, makes a little bit more sense. Related to what we've been talking about, like I feel like it's a gift that we got 80, they're giving us 80, 81 wins without Cody Bellinger on the roster. But I also would like to know what it looks like with Cody Bellinger on the roster, or with Cody Bellinger on another team, and what have the Cubs done to replace him? You know what I mean? Like these types of things. Like it's not fun to look at right now when I know in my heart that the Cubs aren't done yet. I fully believe they're not done yet. So Speed it up.
Spin Zone, baseball has the most boring offseason of any sport, but that makes us the most exciting thing in the offseason. Spin Zone. Also exciting, Game Time, who's also looking out for the little guy and trying to get you good deals on tickets, Ryan.
Yeah, dude, Game Time, and we talk about it all the time, how I've used Game Time for specific games. Actually, I think I talked about it, but the first ever Bears game I went to was with Game Time. We were at one of our tailgates.
Oh, yeah.
Me and my parents and some aunts and uncles. It was Bears Texans, I think, a couple years ago.
And all of a sudden you just were at the
never been to a Bears game before, and we're like, you know what, let's go. Checked out Game Time, and got our tickets like that, and we were at Soldier Field. But yeah, Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Some of the things I like about the Game Time experience, they get the last-minute tickets, flash deals, and zone deals. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. And they actually give you, when you're on there, you get the views from the seat. So when you're looking at prices and where you might be at in specific stadiums, you're looking at, you can actually look at it through Game Time. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see that. If you're not,
what's the cheapest Super Bowl ticket out there right now?
Big game ticket. Cheapest big game ticket.
$5,000.
It's a good
$6,000.
view. At least
it's a great view of the park. Yeah, it's tough. Super Bowl is pretty. Yeah. But yeah, so Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings, and the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Cody, what's your best Game Time purchase?
Well, I went to Morgan Wallen last year at Wrigley for literally under $200, which was a really good price considering most of the tickets were over $300.
Might use it for Luke Bryan this year?
Perhaps. I already got tickets to JT, so yeah.
Really?
And they came from Game Time. They were cheaper than what they were whenever they came out on like Ticketmaster. So, yeah. And I got him now because his concert's going to be so popular.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I didn't want to miss out.
So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
CBG. That's Charlie the Bacon Guy, based out of Woodridge, Illinois. Makes craft bacon and bacon jams in over 35 different flavors. The bacon and bacon jams are all naturally cured, preservative-free products. There aren't any ingredients that Charlie can't pronounce himself involved in the process, unlike most store-bought bacon. It's vacuum sealed, freezes perfectly. Bacon lasts in the package up to 60 days in the fridge, 1 week after the seal is broken. 9 months in the freezer. Bacon jam lasts 90 days in the fridge, up to 1 year in the freezer. Now, some of my favorites: rosemary, chorizo, French toast, Korean barbecue. They even have a giardiniera. And the bacon jams, original, bourbon, spicy. Listen, Super Bowl parties are this weekend. If you're going to one or hosting one, there is no better way to impress your friends. Everybody likes to show up that next Monday and be like, that was a great game. But let me tell you about what somebody had to eat. Like, somebody brought this slider or somebody brought this. How do you become the talk of the town on Monday or the talk of your Super Bowl party? You show up with Charlie the Bacon Guy's stuff. Bacon jam goes perfect on anything. You can put it in scrambled eggs, toast, crackers, burgers. I said yesterday, show up and make grilled cheese for everybody, but throw a little bacon jam in that bad boy. Or drop a few big scoops of it on a charcuterie board and watch people go crazy at your Super Bowl party.
Put it on pizza.
Put it on pizza. Oh, wait a minute.
Trust me.
You've done it, huh?
Every time Brendan has talked about this, I always say this. Put it on pizza, I promise.
Oh, all right.
Wow.
I got to do that.
Wow, this is the moment of the whole
Sounds better than
show.
putting pineapple on it, that's for sure.
Do both.
Do both is right.
I'm not a pineapple on pizza guy, but
Starting now, you can save 10% on your order at charliethebaconguy.com when you use the code with the 4 important letters, CHGO. Use the code CHGO at checkout. You could pick it up. That's the most efficient way. Or he'll deliver it to you, meet you halfway, or even ship it. He makes the bacon so you can bring it home and put it on your Super Bowl pizza. Go to his website, www.charliethebaconguy.com. He's also on Instagram, Twitter, and also has an email.
we have 154 people watching us talk
Well,
about
we just started talking about bacon, of course. Like
Yeah.
we were at like 10, and then all of a sudden, Corey says, put Charlie the Bacon Guy's jam on your pizza,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, ding, ding, ding,
I'm pretty
ding.
sure Charlie's
Yeah.
tuning in today. I saw him
He
leave
was
a
in the
comment
chat.
there.
Charlie was there?
Yeah.
He's in the chat, yeah.
Charlie the Bacon Guy can make you the hero of Super Bowl Sunday. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Did
Especially
we,
for getting pizza. Like
Sarah, did
How
you see
Corey's
what Obvious Shirts put out?
What, he made his own shirt?
Yeah, let's
saying,
go, Jed.
Let's go.
Hashtag Let's Go Jed. It's what we've basically been talking about. He's got 50 days to get it
Wearing
done.
it every day until they sign Belly.
By
Be
the
a smelly
way,
shirt by the end of it, Joe.
Yeah.
and after you pick that up, you know, when you go to be a diehard, of course, you get a free shirt here. And the Sammy shirts are in.
Yeah.
Cody had on already, bring Sammy home.
It's real comfortable. I like
He's
it.
got the hoodie. So those are out. We got our dope merches here. Did you see Altuve signed a 5-year deal with the Astros? And then,
Yeah.
maybe coincidentally, I don't know, Brendan puts out a picture of, Rich Biesterfeld had put out the picture of one player on the Cubs. Okay, Nick Madrigal. And then a former player from the Cubs, one Sammy Sosa. And it's a very similar batting stance. Now, I am not personally saying that Mags could turn into Sammy Sosa based on the batting stance. But if Altuve can do it, why can't Mags do it?
Do you want me to tell you why? Oh, you're being facetious. All right, never mind.
I saved this topic just for Corey's appearance today.
Well, Brendan also asked the
Brendan
question.
did put it side by side. It does
There it
look
is, I
very
see it.
similar.
Brendan
if he could add the
also-
hop after the swing.
Yeah.
He could add the hop.
The
A little more extension from Sammy on the hands, though.
For sure. I will say, Brendan also posed a question of what would happen more, or what's more likely to happen. Morel strikes out 10 dudes, or Madrigal
converted
hits
to
5
be a
homers.
pitcher.
Yeah. What's more likely to happen, Morel to strike out 5 or 10 dudes, or Madrigal to hit 5 homers?
That one was not Brendan's best work because Madrigal doesn't have 5 homers in his career. So him doing it in a single season would be
Incredible.
perhaps the most stunning
He's
development.
bigger. Notice that?
He is
Wow.
beefier.
First person to notice was Steven, our White Sox producer.
I think
First
that,
person to notice.
that
Bro,
extra,
you're bigger.
That extra bulk, he might drive him to the warning track this year.
Yeah.
He's like, bro, you're bigger. And he was
Yeah.
right. And he said, thanks, man. I've been working on
I
it.
actually do wonder about that, like on even on like being serious, like that. I'm curious about that development from Madrigal's perspective. Like, obviously, getting stronger is good, but that he should not be swinging to slug.
Well,
like that's not his
I
game.
don't think he is. I think
Well, it's just one of those, like, when guys bulk up like that, you know, it's like
well, I even questioned the other part of it. I think
he's going to hit double
I
play
think what
ground
he
balls
told us
harder
in the
now, or
interview-
what?
No. I think what he told us in the interview was he was trying to put on some size to help his body kind of weather the season a little bit better. And I, you know, there's people way smarter than me all over the world. The only thing I question about that is we saw Seiya bulk up, and he started the season on the injured list. We've seen different players try to bulk up, and it doesn't necessarily correlate that you're going to be healthier that season. Sometimes I think the injury stuff is just, maybe it's flexibility that's more important than anything. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, so are you just to pose the question of can Madrigal turn into
the next Sammy Sosa
into Jose Altuve?
Or Altuve.
No, but also let's just acknowledge the fact that Jose Altuve's had the Crawford boxes in Houston for his entire career, and I do think that means something, okay? Not to take anything away from him, but I do think he's benefited from the ballpark that he's played in.
Madrigal did homer against the White Sox. I saw it in person.
You did.
Yeah, I think Sean Caselli in the chat said no Madrigal power, no Morel walk-off.
That's right. I saw it in person.
I did too.
That's true.
I
By the way, Sox 0% chance of making the playoffs according to PECOTA. Just throwing the number out.
That's pretty depressing.
There you go.
Yeah.
We always get into this, and I always do just want to reiterate because I see people in the chat talk, like I'm throwing shade at Madrigal, which I am. But I do want to clarify,
nice
as I've said
nice
many times, I do think that he can play a role on a good team. For the Cubs organization, what they're worth, what their aspirations are, et cetera, my issue is discussing him as a legitimate starting option at third base when he has a career WRC plus that is below league average. And again, for as much as it worked, still has to take a pretty unorthodox route and setup to get simple outs at third base. I find that to be not a serious conversation from my perspective. If the team had slug everywhere and third base, he's hitting ninth, and it's the 2016 lineup with a murderer's row from 1 to 7, fine. Do whatever you want. That's not the team that they have, and I don't find it to be a serious conversation.
Maybe.
I agree with that. I think we all agree.
I have nothing against him as a person, and I do think he can be a quality player on a good team. Starting at third base, that's not serious. I'm sorry.
If Nico wasn't at second base, we would have more reasonable conversations about Madrigal potentially being that second baseman.
Yeah, and if you had a real bona fide slugger at third base, it can be fine. Now, again, he still, even in that scenario, has a lot to prove. He has to stay healthy, and he has to hit above a league average clip for more than a couple weeks at a time. But I do just like to clarify, I have fun, dogging the guy or making jokes, but my actual, criticism is with what the discussion sort of it. Even yesterday, people looking at the pictures we bulked up. What? Come on, guys. What are we doing here?
We're bored waiting for the Cubs.
We are
to sign
very
Bellinger.
bored. Yeah. We are very
bored. Do we have
bored.
another super chat?
Fernando
just throwing the money around.
At this point, do you guys think Belly has dug a hole in fan expectation if he gets an overpriced contract Boras wants? Will fans turn on Belly? That's something that I've actually kind of thought about. I was DMing with one of our listeners last night on Instagram, and she said something along the lines of it's gone. The process has gone on so long that I've started to ask myself the question of, do I even want him? And that's what we're all bored at this point, waiting for this whole process to happen. And I legit, I have gone through the same process as well, but I just can't find myself to believe that this team will be better without Bellinger. They would need a lot of things to work out, or in terms of internally, or they would have to make a trade or something. Because if they don't sign Bellinger, I don't think they'll sign Chapman. Maybe they sign Montgomery instead, so maybe the pitching's better and you rely on the prospects offensively, whatever. But they're just, to me, the other scenario without Bellinger, I haven't brought myself to the point to where I think it would go wrong.
I think it's interesting because I go back to the shirt from Obvious Shirts, which I'm double repping today. I have my Seiya shirt on. I think
So let's go, Jed.
It's interesting because I don't think that they would turn on Bellinger, but I think Fernando's question does pair with that shirt in a way that it's interesting to me that things have boiled down to this. that we view things, and I agree with it. I'm not disagreeing with the message of let's go Jed. I wanted Cody Bellinger the whole time, and I think Jed needs to get moving more than just Cody Bellinger. I've always been on that. But it is interesting that all of this seems to have boiled down to the thing we all really want is them just bringing back their best player from last year, isn't it? Like, it does feel like the goalpost has moved a bit. And I think that when you look at Fernando's question about would they turn on Bellinger, et cetera, I don't think so, but it is the thing where we've talked about this a bunch. Like, he is a somewhat risky player to give a particular contract to. Again, I want to sign him. I'm into him. I loved having him last year. I'm not moving that. But when we talk about what if a team goes crazy or what if Boras does get what he wants, we've talked about why that may be somewhat risky for Cody's profile, his injury history, etc. So it all just sort of comes together where I find it interesting that it all has boiled down to not only just bringing back the guy who was already on your team last year and just replacing him with him, but also that it's particularly this version of Cody Bellinger. Like an offseason that started with let's get Shohei Ohtani or trade for Juan Soto, the threshold now is just, well, they have to bring back the guy that was their best hitter.
Year.
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
Yeah, and I would say, I don't know what the PECOTA projections are. The only thing I'll say about Bellinger, we all know that it could go bad. I would say the percentage of likeliness that the contract goes bad, it could go equally bad or more so if they don't sign him. I think it's way more likely to go bad if they don't sign him this season.
Oh, no question.
Than it is that the contract will go bad and hamper the Cubs moving forward.
I agree.
So that's why I think they need to sign him. I don't think they need to sign him for 12 years.
I don't think they're going to give him that contract.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're not going to give him a contract that I think they
either.
regret. That's what Jed's whole thing is.
Yeah, and I also think, it's a risk, right? But I said this earlier in the show that at some point you got to be willing to take a risk. Obviously for the Cubs it would suck if it didn't work out, but like at some point you have to be able to take a risk on a player you really want. And like at least with Bellinger, they have that year of data of getting to know him, of building the relationship, of knowing what he's about. At least they have a year of all that kind of stuff. So it's not, I don't want to say shot in the dark, but it's not just going out and getting a free agent you don't already know. Is it a risk? Yeah, because we saw what his 2021 and 2022 were. We know the injury history, and we know that last season, we're not 100% sure that it wasn't a more of an anomaly than not, right? But at some point, if it's a guy you want, a guy that fits your team, a guy that can help you win, you kind of have to be willing to take that risk. And, that's obviously up to the front office to decide if Cody Bellinger is that guy that they need to take the risk on. But at some point they do. And so I think I'm saying that generally, like at some point they have to take a risk on someone. And if, I look at it and Bellinger may be that guy. If I'm looking at it, Bellinger might be that guy for him, just considering what he was able to do last year and knowing the organization, knowing the system, knowing everything that the Cubs are about. It might be that guy.
Cook.
I think it is that guy.
Cook. Keep cooking.
Am I cooking?
Yeah, I love Brian's comment. Let Selena's fiance cook.
Okay, yeah. I'm telling you, it's my new favorite bit. It's gonna be out there in the app, in the universe.
Just from the show alone, we'll manifest Ryan Herrera and the Selena Gomez wedding.
Yeah, seems likely. Hey guys, one thing I can guarantee is low prices at CD One Price Cleaners. Customers save over 30% on their dry cleaning bill by switching to CD One Price Cleaners. Simple, transparent service, fast turnaround. They have your order ready the same day or the next day. Other cleaners take 2-4 days, sometimes a week to get your garments ready. They text alerts to you, let you know when your order is ready for pickup. Lot of a big variety of services. They do dry clean, wash and fold laundry, blankets, comforters, leather cleaning, rug clean. I use the one in Arlington Heights. I've used it for a lot of those things. Visit chgo.cd1, that's ONE.com. Link in the description. Once you're there, you could pick from an in-store coupon or an online pickup and delivery coupon options. You're going to want to check it out. They do great stuff. Like I said, it is fast. springtime, sometimes like people like to clean their comforter and store it away for the summertime. Man, they do it fast. It's the next day.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the day.
Yeah, Fernando said, I'm all about CD1. Great turnaround time.
It's amazing. They are really fast. And I like the text, too. I like to know when it's ready. I don't want to be guessing, like, if I'm going to go over to the cleaners, is it going to be ready? I know. They've already sent me a text. It's ready. By the way, I think Cody's aware of this, but it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. It's something we can all get behind, for the health of the planet or for the well-being of all of us who share. That's why Cody rides a scooter sometimes.
Absolutely. Barb, listen up, because you're never listening to me, all right? The electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence toward an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
So what should business owners do, Cody?
Well, Luke, Corey, Ryan, the chat, specifically Barb in this case, you should go to ComEd.com/clean and learn about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/clean?
Stuck, you going to listen? Yes.
Well, I've had a cold. It's congesting my ears.
Oh, God. You're acting like Barb. Listen up. Go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come. ComEd.com/clean.
Clean.
/clean.
Matthew Gregory in the live YouTube chat with a good point that, you could have those Hawaiian shirts ready to go for spring training. You drop them off at CD1 Cleaners.
Oh, yeah.
They'll wash them, fold them. All you got to do is put them in the suitcase.
Ready to go.
Fresh. You're ready.
Yeah, I've talked about how I haven't packed anything yet. CD1 helps, get that started.
Oh,
I
the
put
Godfather
Hawaiians in
has an
there.
electric frying pan. That's something I didn't know. See
We
what the chat gives you,
We
every once in a while.
know Godfather
How about
has
that?
new floors thanks to Empire, and now we know he has an electric frying pan.
Yep. Everybody's getting rid of those gas stoves. Everybody's going back to old electric. So, we have 1 minute left or slightly more. And I was going to give Corey the floor to talk about wrestling, but apparently he doesn't have time to tell you why he's mad
bad
that
idea.
It's much more than
The
a
Rock is going to be the main event in
bad idea. I need
WrestleMania.
way more than a minute.
Might
but
take a whole week's worth of
I will,
podcast.
I will take
Maybe next week when Ryan's gone, you jump in and we just do a wrestling
And Brendan
segment.
gets mad at me. I like, it's a Cubs show. I like to talk about the Cubs. I will publicly, though, I think along with Ryan, just reiterate, not this one. We want Cody, and he needs to finish the story. If you know, you know.
Oh, okay.
That's
Not
it.
me. Listen, it's the year of the Codys in 2024.
Too many Codys.
Yeah.
So, Corey, I agree with you. We want Cody.
He's agreed with me. He's agreed with Corey today.
Yeah.
Look,
Credit to me.
this is a whole new Cody. He's
But
agreeing with everybody.
Before we sign off, I did see a comment from, I think it was Lance in our YouTube chat that I thought was a good one, just to wrap up the projection stuff. Like certainty in the projections and stuff doesn't guarantee anything. And I think it's a good thing to remember when everybody's talking about these projections. I think we would like the Cubs to be reflected higher because there's just a lot of risk and a lot of things in baseball. And the more you can control and the better position you put yourself in, the more likely, let's say, things go well. But I think it is a good point. There's a lot of discussion about projections and win models and stuff. And ultimately, correct, that does not win baseball games. And best laid plans go wrong. Teams outperform projections, et cetera, et cetera. So you can kind of take all of the discussion now as you will. But I do think like where they're projected at now is reflective of how they've operated and how their offseason has gone. And I think it would be nice to get that number higher because it would reflect that they've made better moves and made the team better on paper, which of course only gets you so far, but season hasn't started. So that's as far as we can go right now.
Should that be our next shirt? He's got Let's Go Jed over at Obvious Shirts. Should we have Finish the Story, Cody?
Yeah. That would have been a great tagline for 2016. Finish the story for the Cubs.
When it does work, I know
they haven't put out their slogan yet.
It was
Finish the story.
It was very confusing to a lot of folks on Cubs Twitter in particular when all of that was happening because
We want
people were
Cody.
talking about Cody Rhodes, a wrestler.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of the hashtags looked like they could have just very easily be co-opted
Bellinger.
by Cubs Twitter.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
when Cody was getting his name chanted at Cubs convention.
Right.
And in St. Louis
The big year,
on Monday,
for
and
Cody's.
at the Royal Rumble. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Listen,
Eric,
it's
don't let
year.
the fact that wrestling is fake get in the way of a good story.
What do you mean it's fake?
This is news to me. What are you talking about?
Right.
But also, before we get out of here,
Yeah.
Red Sox getting their own version of Hard Knocks. I am here to say that I am still waiting for the 2016 Cubs World Series or season movie. Bill Murray is only going to be on this earth for not very much longer.
Finite
Bite
number.
your
Oh,
tongue.
wow, he's killing off
Yeah,
Bill
he's
Murray.
killing
Hey,
off Bill Murray.
whoa.
First he did it in Zombieland,
Listen,
and now
my
Cody's doing it in
man
real
Bill
life.
goodness.
Murray is
Just say you
getting
should-
older by the day.
You
All
should have
right,
just said a finite number of years.
all right, finite number of years.
you go.
Sorry, all right.
How much longer?
I am waiting. The Red Sox, they have Fever Pitch. They have the documentary, the 30 for 30 documentary, and now they're going to have their own Hard Knocks on top of something that's related to the 04 championship. I'm just saying the Cubs deserve something. I know we have like the World Series DVD that like MLB makes for every single team when they win the World Series. I don't care. I need something. I am deserving of that. And I swear to God, if Bill Murray is not in it, I'm going to be upset. Okay.
Well, we do have Taking Care of Business, that movie with who's the guy? I can't stand
No,
him.
no, Cubs have Rookie of the Year.
Come on. Taking Care of Business. He skips work. Skips work. And
Ferris
he goes
Bueller takes a
No,
day
that's
off?
Ferris Bueller.
Thursday's day off. They
Taking
were at
Care
a
of
Cubs
Business. He escapes from jail to see the Cubs, I think, in the World Series.
Hmm.
It's a Belushi.
I don't think
Jim
I've ever seen
Belushi.
Yeah.
I was like,
Great
Luke
Cubs fan,
could
Jim
be
Belushi,
describing
of
a
course.
silent
Yeah.
film with Charlie Chaplin. We don't know. So
I just
Legendary Cubs fan, Jim Belushi.
Yeah.
the spin
Pregnant
zone.
pause.
I
Sarcasm.
feel like I'm 2016 Cubs content is always welcome because they won the World Series that year. A lot of
Oh, they
people
did.
forget that.
Yeah.
But
They do.
I like, especially like right now, I'm kind of fine with the Cubs being left alone. I don't need a camera on them because the Red Sox, even the response to that from their fans was a little weird. Like
Well, yeah.
they were like, is the show going to cover how they went from one of the top franchises in baseball to the cellar dwellers of the AL East? Or like, what are we talking about? It's not the best
Yeah,
time.
That was
for that.
that was going to be my spin zone, is the fact that they chose the worst team to do it for right now. But again, I stand on what I said about
That would just be another
needing a
thing
2016
like the sports book
movie.
that everyone would say, oh, they have a big Netflix deal for them to not spend any money on Cody Bellinger. We don't need it.
That's fair. I don't care if the
I
Cubs
don't
have
either.
their own Hard Knocks or whatever. I care about the movie because, again, Netflix is doing this Hard Knocks version for the Red Sox,
Tavern style still.
but they're also doing like another 04 like documentary thing. And I'm like, when are we getting the Cubs one, man?
All right, we got to go. Ryan has a very important tavern style to do. We're back at 12:30 tomorrow. Again, live, Barb, 12:30 right here for the CHGO Cubs podcast. Thanks again to Ben, Steve, and Greg, Jimmy, Jacob, and Jeremy for being the newest diehards. You can go to allchgo.com, sign up to be that diehard. You get the card, you get the swag, you get the prestige of all of it, and access to Ryan's articles. Until tomorrow at 12:30. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and see you tomorrow. Fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.